In this video, we're going to cover Gauss-Jordan elimination with a 2x2 matrix. And I've already made one video on this, and we were guided in that on what to do. And this one, we're going to be a little less guided in what to do. Okay, so the first step is we're going to use multiplication to get rid of row 1, column 1. That's this one. Okay, so we're going to multiply by something that'll turn that into a 1. And then we'll use the 1 with multiplication to zero out row 2, C1, to zero out this one. Okay, and then we'll use multiplication to get a 1 in row 2, column 2, which is this one. And then we'll use the 1 that we created there with multiplication to get a 0 here. Okay, so I know that's a lot. Let's go through the step and this step by step. So this set of equations here, this system of equations, we're going to put the numbers into the boxes. So the 4 goes first, and then we have 12, negative 24, and negative 8, negative 28, and 36. Okay, so now that we have the numbers in, we're going to multiply row 1 by something that will put a 1 right here. Okay, so what would that number be? So we need this 4 to turn into a 1, so I'm going to multiply by 1/4. Okay, so the 1/4 gets me the 4, or gets me the 1 here, but I have to multiply the 4th on the other two things too, which would turn this into a 3, and a 4th of negative 24 is negative 6. And the second row didn't change, that's negative 8, negative 28, and 36. Okay, so our next step is that we want to use R1 to add to R2 and make this turn into a 0. So what do I multiply by? What do I multiply this number by to make it the opposite of this number? Okay, because we want when they add this to go away completely. So I need to make the 1 be the opposite of the negative 8, which is a positive 8. So I'm going to multiply by 8. Okay, because 8 times 1 gives us 8, and if we add them down, we'll get a 0. Okay, so 8 times 1 plus negative 8 is 0. 8 times 3 is 24. If we add to the negative 28, we will get negative 4. 8 times 6 is negative 48. And if we add negative 48 to 36, we will get negative 12. And the top hasn't changed. 1, 3, negative 6. Okay, now we have this negative 4 and this negative 12. I need to multiply something that will turn this into a 1. Okay, so what can I multiply negative 4 by such that it will turn into a 1? Well, it needs to be a negative because a negative times a negative is positive. And it needs to be the opposite, the reciprocal basically, the opposite reciprocal. So it needs to be negative 1/4. Okay, so negative 1/4 times this gives a 1. And negative 1/4 times negative 12 gives a 3. The top equation has not changed yet. But now we've got the bottom equation done. We've got our solution for y. Y is equal to 3. Okay, so once you get the 1 here, remember this is your x's, these are your y's, and these are your numbers. So we've got y, just one y, equals 3. Okay, and now we can use this 1 here to turn this one into a 0. So what do I multiply 1 by to turn it into the opposite of 3? Well, negative 3. Okay, so negative 3 times 0 added to 1. Well, negative 3 times 0 is still 0, so this one doesn't change. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3 plus 3 is 0, so that worked. And then negative 3 times 3 is negative 9 plus negative 6, which would be negative 15. So you get negative 15 for your x, and you get 3 for your y. Okay, let's do the second one here. So we've got this system of equations, and we want to put all these numbers into these boxes. So negative 5, 20, negative 35, negative 6, 28, and negative 62. Okay, so first step, multiply this whole row by something that turns this into a positive 1. Positive 1. Okay, so what do I multiply negative 5 by to turn it into a positive 1? Well, it would be negative 1/5. Negative 1/5 times negative 5, the negative times a negative cancel out, and 5 over 5 is 1. Okay, but we had to multiply the other thing there. We know that's a 1, but what about negative 1/5 times 20? So that's basically 20 divided by negative 5, which is negative 4. and then negative 1/5 times 35. Negative divided by negative is positive, and 35 divided by 5 is 7. Okay, the second one hasn't changed, so negative 6, 28, and negative 62. Okay, and our next step is we're going to try to turn this one into a 0 by using the 1 that we have here. So what do I need to multiply this 1 by to change it to the opposite of 6? Well, 6. So I'll multiply 6 times R1 and add it to R2. Notice that this top one is not going to change. Even though I say I'm multiplying it by 6 and adding it to R2, the top row still hasn't changed. I'm just using that to change the second row. So the second row is what's going to change. So 6 times 1 is 6. Add to negative 6, you get a 0. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. 28 minus 24 is 4. And then 6 times 7 is 42. Okay, and we get negative 62 plus 42, so that's going to be negative 20. Okay, now my next step, I want to turn this into a 1. So what do I multiply 4 by to make it turn into a 1? Well, multiply by a fourth. 4 times a fourth is 1. Okay, so let's multiply the whole thing. 4 times a fourth is 1. We already know. Negative 20 times a fourth, or negative 20 divided by 4 is negative 5. The top one still hasn't changed. Okay, so now we want to use this 1 we want to multiply this equation, and this 1 needs to cancel out this term. So what do I multiply with 1 by to make it the opposite of the negative 4? Well, multiply it by 4. So 4 times 0 is 0. Add it to 1, you still get a 1. 4 times 1 is a 4. Add it to negative 4, and it cancels. Okay, and then 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. Negative 20 plus 7 is negative 13. And this is negative 5. Okay, so we get our two solutions. X is negative 13, and Y is negative 5. And you could write that as an ordered pair as negative 13, comma, negative 5. Okay, last example. So we want first to put all these numbers in these boxes. So here's negative 2, negative 12, 16, negative 4, negative 20, 24. Okay, same process as all the other ones we've done. We want to turn this number right here into a positive 1. So what I multiply negative 2 by to turn it into a positive 1, I need a negative to make it positive and a half to get rid of the 2, so negative half. So I have to multiply by that on everything on top. So the first one becomes a 1. Negative half times 2 is 1. And then negative half times negative 12 is positive, and half of 12 is 6. And then negative half times 16 is negative 8. Okay, the bottom didn't change. Negative 4, negative 20, and 24. Okay, now we need to use this equation to make this turn into a 0. So what do I multiply 1 by to turn it into the opposite of negative 4? Well, I need a positive 4. Okay, so 4 times 1 is 4. We add to negative 4, it goes to 0. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 minus 20 is 4. And 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. Negative 32 plus 24. Negative 32 plus 24 is negative 8. Okay, so the top doesn't change. Okay, so the next step is we need to multiply this by something that will make it turn into a 1. So 1/4. 1/4 of 4 is 1. And 1/4 of negative 8 is negative 2. Okay, and top didn't change, 6 and 8. Okay, so we got our one solution. Y is equal to negative 2. Okay, now we need to use this equation, but especially this 1, to get this 6 to go away. So what do I multiply 1 by to turn it into the opposite of 6? Well, a negative 6. Okay, so negative 6 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. Negative 6 times 6 is 36, or excuse me, negative 6 times 1 is negative 6, and then add there, and that goes to 0. And then negative 6 times negative 2, that's positive 12. 12 plus 8 is 20. So So we can write that this is still 1, negative 2, and negative 6 times this is 12, and that will multiply to get, oh, I made a mistake there. That should have been a negative. Didn't write it as a negative. Okay, so again, we multiply negative 6 times negative 2. That becomes a 12, and 12 minus 8 is 4. So we get our solution. It is 4. So this is the ordered pair solution, 4, comma, negative 2.